All right.
Can we have that as a sound?
With that jazzy intro.
I'll just say, when people vote in the affirmative and
Yeah, we'll incorporate that. It'll be a fun committee. Since it is 8:30, I will go ahead. 8:31. I will go ahead and call the January 4th meeting of the Utilities Commission to order. Let's see, clerk.
please call the roll, please.
Yeah, yep. The clerk may call the roll. I was getting there, Rob.
Mr. Sires,
Here.
Mr. Ball, Mr. Reinhardt,
Here?
Ms. Duesenberg,
Here.
Is that all? Okay. Do we need any sort of motion to excuse?
No,
Brian?
he gets paid.
Okay.
You do the motion to excuse council members because unless they're excused, they don't get paid.
Ah, got it.
So if they're
Yeah, Brian
absent
ain't
without
getting
excuse, so he's already in.
Sorry, B-Ray. All right. All right. First agenda item here is minutes approval from December 7th. Members of the commission, you have received the minutes. Are there any additions and corrections that need to be made? Hearing none, I'll assume they are approved by consensus. All right, moving on to new business. I see no new business before the commission. Moving on to old business. Current shut-off fee discussion. So, Brad, I'll let the minutes note that Brian Ball has arrived.
So last
Yep, page 3, rules and regs. Take it away, Brad.
So our last meeting, we talked a little bit about this already. So we have two separate things. Our current process, kind of clarifying that for customers and for the office.
Okay.
And then the other part will be, any changes that we want to make in the future as far as changes to the process. So I just pulled up some of our rules and regulations and what we currently have stated in there, and I kind of wanted to show you guys exactly what we have in there. It's very broken and unclear, so to speak, as far as what we need the customers to understand. So that was kind of what I wanted to review. We talked about a little bit last time, and I think everybody was kind of in agreement that maybe clearing that up a bit would be helpful. So right now, if you look through our rules and regulations, I just took some snippets out of it.
Okay.
So the section discontinuation of service utility, we mentioned the non-payment of water bills, including other charges referred herein, right? So we can shut off water for that. So that's kind of mentioned there. And then non-payment of sewer charges is another reason that we can turn off services. At the bottom section I highlighted, whenever service is discontinued for non-payment, the accounts or fraudulent misrepresentation, a charge referred to the fee schedule will be made by the utility to cover the cost of disconnection and reconnection services or service when the same is again reestablished. So that wording is really no longer accurate. So we may need to make some tweaks to that.
Why is the wording no longer accurate?
Because the charge is not for disconnection and reconnection. If they make it to the shut off list, the charge is applied to their account. If we don't shut off the water, or even if they come in and pay before our guys get to them, we don't remove the charge at that point. It is a non-payment fee. It's
Okay.
not a shut off fee.
Okay, I got you, all right. Cover the cost of, to cover the non-payment fee. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, and Rob, as I know you didn't make it to the last meeting, but one of the, not just to call you out there, but I wanted to talk about maybe adjusting a section specifically, adding a section specifically for the shut off process, if that's possible. I thought we could talk about that a little bit, maybe even outside the meeting, just to kind of help understand what I'm trying to get at. I think it would be more clear if it's all in one spot, because as you'll see through this, it's in about 4 sheets that cover it. Which it may still need to be in those places, just some of the wording adjusted, but I still feel like having it somewhere with the actual schedule and our process would be helpful possible. So the next spot that it gets mentioned is in billings and payments. Bills for water service shall be rendered monthly and are payable on or before the 15th day of the billing month. Failure to receive the billing will not entitle customer to net rates nor the remission of any charges for non-payment within the same time specified. Industrial customers, depending on the quality of water, okay, that doesn't really matter. That's just talking separately, but it's kind of referred to here, but not directly mentioned. This is referring to when we did quarterly billing. So we might need to update that a bit because everyone is billed monthly now, where it's just mentioning commercial there. But this is mentioning failure to receive your billing will not entitle customer to net rates nor the remission of any charge for non-payment within the specified time. So we have a lot of people that will sell property and then they never contact us. Their bill starts to build up because they don't believe that they need to ask for the water service, where we have a minimum charge regardless. So that's just another section that I wanted to show that they're not required to receive a bill, right? And that's kind of a rule we try to follow. People really don't like that rule, which is understandable. But if you are buying and selling property in Mount Vernon, you should understand that that's how our rules and regulations work.
Do realtors know that that's a rule?
I believe they do. Most of the ones that call in understand that because they've had to deal with it a couple of times, right? So then the last place is the appendix. And in the appendix, it's noted as turn-on charges or fines, right? When it's really not a turn-on fee, it's a non-payment fee, which it is mentioned in there, and it does say that whether the service is terminated or not, right? So we did kind of clarify a little bit, but it is a little confusing. So I didn't know if that was something that we wanted to update as well to kind of change our tone on it, if that makes sense. So I'm not necessarily asking a direct question, I guess. I just wanted to make everybody aware that that's how our rules and regulations read. I still need to go through our ordinances as well. I think a lot of this information is pulled directly from our ordinances, like almost. So we might have to look at ordinances a little bit too to see if some terminology needs adjusted in there. With our short week and vacations and stuff, I didn't have time to get through the ordinances.
Can't remember if we talked about this last time. Is the $40 standard? Is that a standard fee? And what's the justification for 40?
It is currently a standard fee. It's been that way it's been $40 for.
I know it's standard here, a standard in other communities. I know you reached out to other communities.
So there's a range. 40 is pretty middle grade. I think some people are at 50. I haven't personally seen anybody that I call 50 was the highest that I had gotten hold of. I think Brian and Aaron both are aware of a couple more that are a little higher. There are some others that mix in some other things with their process, and I think my office feels like maybe the process change might be more effective than raising that fee.
Sure.
There are some other things that I wanted to bring up in the changes, the next section. But I think like $40 is pretty close to our other communities close to us. Like Newark requires deposit. I don't think that's a terrible idea, but I would really want to make sure that our system can handle that because we don't want to try to track that manually. That would be very difficult.
Right.
And they after 12 months of good payments and timely payments, they basically will put that money back in as a credit. If after that point you have water disconnected for non-payment, back again to get your water service, kind of protect their investment, so to speak, until it's used up. So I think that might be a good idea, but I have some of that stuff written down for that last. Do you guys have any questions about the rules and regs? So last time we did kind of the math. We were trying to figure out exactly how this works. Aaron and I went through and kind of tried to make this more graphical. This next slide is kind of showing you how that fee impacts and when. So we just took an example. $60 is really close to our payment, perfect, so it's just an example. But to explain this a bit, your first regular bill, we'll just go with like January 15th. The bill due January 15th, which just to note is in arrears. So that's actually water that you can, if you were to pay that on time, $60, right? After the 15th, so on the 16th, we manually add a 10% fee onto that, which would bring it to $66. And if you pay that before the next bill's due, then 66 is all you have. Second bill comes out in February. Same process. It's not, and it's actually not, it wouldn't be applied until March, around the 10th, 8th or 10th. So you have 2 months to get your bill paid before that $40 fee would be applied to your account. So people that are paying that $40 fee are 2 months behind in payments, and that water that they're being feed for is 3 months, 3 months ago that they've consumed it. So we get a lot of arguments that we're just trying to take advantage of people, but I try to give an example. A gas station is not going to give you gas ahead of time and let you pay for it later, and if you don't pay, you're not getting gas. So people don't seem to see it that way. And then I just added another month in to show you how it would look like when it compounds. So if you get 3 months behind, you can end up with a bill of $278. Where if on the right-hand side, I just kind of threw in the normal payment, you'd be at $180 for 3 months. So it is a substantial hit to the pocket, even at that, if people let it stack.
Right, but to get turned back on, you would just have to pay the January bill and the January fees.
That's correct.
So that's how we're getting people that are getting turned off 10 times in 12 months.
Yeah, so that's another thing for that. I should probably just combine these conversations, I guess.
Yeah, if you said, hey, if you want turned on, you got to be completely paid up, then they would have a maximum number of interactions of.
So several other communities around us do require paid in full before you get your water turned back on.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that being more effective than raising the prices. Like Apple Valley, Knox County Water, when I asked them about that, they kind of laughed at me, right? And they said, people offer us more money to come turn their water on same day because they don't do same day turn-ons. They do day 1, shut off, day 2, turn on. So you're 24 hours without water. And they said that was far more effective than the price. People often come in and say, hey, can I just pay you more? I'll pay for the guys to go out and do it. I'll pay overtime, whatever, to get their water turned back on. So for them, they don't believe that money is really the impact, right? Now, we should be covering our costs, right? I don't disagree with that. We should be covering our costs.
So here's my question. What is the cause of people ending up at this 278 point? Because this is when you're getting your water shut off, right?
I mean, the only thing I can do is speculate on that. Like the statistics I brought last time was what, 1.2% of all customers. I mean, I don't know what the level is, but people could just be in bad shape. I mean, it's hard for me to say how they're there.
What we know is that they didn't pay the bill.
Yeah.
Sure.
We don't know why.
So I hate to put words in people's mouth, but
Right.
They pretty much everyone has an emergency in this situation.
Right.
At least that's what we hear on the phone. So
Yeah. So and I'm not expecting anybody up here to just know.
right.
But at the same time, to already let's put somebody in a crisis situation where they're 3 months behind, and then to say, all right, well, all at once, I need nearly $300 from you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have that, obviously.
Right.
So this is where I think the pay it or pour it forward program comes into play,
Right.
where we can really promote that. This is where I think work with our other departments and communicate with some of the assistance programs throughout the city and let them know if we potentially change the way that we do this.
Yeah.
And maybe not, I mean, it's a lot to go from 1 month to pay it all in full.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if that's the standard, it's kind of bizarre that we're
I think
so lenient and everyone else is at
Right.
this standard.
I think that pay in full would keep you at that 172.
Okay.
right? So I think that's one benefit would be that you wouldn't
is
get
also
up
true.
that
You
high
never-
because you'll save a month's payment plus the $40 fee.
Yeah, you're gonna save them money. You're gonna save them the $40.
Yeah, you never allow them to get to the,
Yeah, so the people that had 9 shut-off events or 10 shut-off events, you're gonna reduce them to a 6 because they're gonna have that many less $40 fees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they essentially paid double. I mean, the way it works out, your $40 fee plus your 10%, you're about paying double every single month.
sure.
So if we catch them earlier and don't let them stack it, then that would potentially be kind of forcing
you-
them to catch up.
Fall in a doom loop at that point. So if we can, essentially, if we can avoid the doom loop, that would be nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And also I'd like to mention that we have like basically 4 programs in Mount Vernon that do amazing things. I would say I don't like to just throw numbers out there, but just hearing phone calls, I'm going to guess it's around 50% to 50% of people get a pledge for shutoffs. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know that actual number because we don't track that, right? But they'll call and make pledges. We'll get water turned on same day, and then that organization will send us a check. So we are helping people. We have
Right.
tons of help in the community outside of what we're also running. So
But they're also they're only allowed to go to them so many times.
right, I don't know all of their
Right, so if we work with, we've met with the different agencies, individuals are only allowed to make so many trips to ask for help.
Sure.
So if they're making 9 trips, they're denied. Because there's only so many trips to ask for help, and in this, they would be, we'd be reducing the total number of trips, and then, this is probably,
Is it per trip or is it a dollar figure?
I think it's so many asks, is what my understanding is.
Because if it's a dollar figure, it's one thing. If it's a trip, that's different.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I don't know exactly what
verify
all
that,
the
yeah.
rules and regulations are, but I do know that like this month, end of the year, we received calls from, was it 1 or 2 of that called and said they had like to give their information out. They had more money, they had to use it up by the end of the year. So they are very giving, and I don't there probably are limitations, but I think I see the same people getting assistance over and over again. But I don't know exactly what the numbers are.
Well, one thing we talked about is we met with them before holidays. There is like a pamphlet that has all the phone numbers of assistance, so they're going to try to get that in a digital format that we could attach to the back of the water bill at some point.
or the new website even will have
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And moving it back that way and not letting people get to the that second month will even reduce that dollar figure. So that would be good. The trips and the dollar figure would reduce. So.
And it saves us the time by not having to shut the water off.
So within the department is the 24-hour shut off, is that kind of universally, is that
If-
where they want to see it go?
I think they believe that would be more effective. I think they used to do it that way. For some reason or another, we got away from it. I don't know if it was COVID. Wasn't here when they had done that, but I think at least one, and I'd have to look up my notes, but at least 1 or 2 of the places I called said that they switched from immediate turn back on to a 24-hour minimum, and they all had good things to say about that being effective.
Rob, do you know if that's a code or if that's just administrative?
That's an administrative decision.
Okay. Brad will talk about that.
Okay. So what I'd mentioned earlier, Rob, about the section, this last page for the section, things that I thought would be helpful to have in rules and regulations is a little bit more details about our schedule. So I kind of have it noted here, how our termination works. So I thought these might just be some things that we could try to work into the rules and regulations, but I wanted to talk to you about it and what you thought. We can still leave our appendix in there with our fee because that may change at some point in time, but for the actual wording, I think that the schedule could be somewhat permanent in the rules and regulations, and then we can make that available to people. There's often a lot of confusion in how this works. And then actually just yesterday, I didn't have time to put paperwork together, but just yesterday a customer pointed out that the way our billing system adds the $40 fee, they actually never see it on their bill as a fee, right? It just goes into the balance. And so I called yesterday, talked to our software company, like, hey, why Why is this not showing up? Because they were complaining, hey, I see these, the balance gets bigger, but you don't tell me why. You don't explain why. So I'm working on getting that straightened out too. So that was the other thing. So the way our software handles that right now is that if we add those $40 fees the morning of shut off before we open up, because if we get a payment in the mail, we typically will try to keep them from, saves us time, saves them hassle. But after we make that list and we process that, it becomes really difficult for us to return that, and we get a lot done. So with this process, we'd be taking those adjustments that get applied to that account in one bucket, and we would save it to the next bill, right? So it actually wouldn't apply to their the next billing run. So they would be paying their $40 fee another month later, right? But they would see it come in on the bill. It would be explained that as an adjustment that was made, and then the bill to get turned back on would be $40 less, right? And then, but that still pushes that $40 out. I don't know how effective that will be, what the impact will be, customers, understandably. So, like, as of right now, they have to pay that extra 40. So if they come in and pay their bill and they don't pay the 40 because they weren't prepared to, we still don't turn the water back on until the 40 is covered.
I mean, I feel like the word's out there. I mean,
Do you think that whenever we set up an account, that we should give people sort of a crib sheet list, and then we can, and then check off, these people received this, so they can say, I had no idea that I had to call and tell you to turn off the water when I sold the place, otherwise we'd keep getting bills.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. We started for our Buckeye Edition project. We've started drafting because you have a whole neighborhood who's switching over to city water. Basically, we started drafting like a welcome to the water system letter. So I think we could dig more into. We only have a first draft, but that's something we could definitely.
Well, we actually have a service agreement. Mm-hmm. So they do sign a paper for our services. We could just modify the service agreement.
Do we give them the copy of the service?
We have to have a signed service agreement.
No. Do we give them a copy of that when they sign it?
No. They usually take it home with them, sign it, and bring it back. But yeah, we should.
So they can say, yeah, I signed it, but they never got a copy of it.
Well, okay, so this is almost a question for Lacey. When someone puts a permit in, that perhaps could be like when you get an iPhone, you can't do anything until you agree to the big long list of stuff that they're going to do to you with your data. You'd add that to iWorks so that they would have to acknowledge that service agreement before they apply for the permit.
Yeah. That would be helpful, but it doesn't take care of property transfers or
no,
new
you still have to
tenants,
do it after the initial application.
Yeah. So we have two things that have to be signed. Well, three. We have a service agreement, which is just, hey, you're with Mount Vernon. Here's your service agreement between us and you for water, right? Then we have, if you are running a rental, then there's a tenant agreement.
Yep.
And then there's another paper that the homeowner signs. So the homeowners are ultimately responsible for the bill, regardless, right?
Yep.
If they choose to sublease, is how I like to say it. I don't know if Rob will agree with me, but you're subleasing your water. You're allowing someone else to make your payment for you, essentially. And if they don't pay it, then you're still held responsible for that. So we have paperwork that they sign with that, but we also don't give them a copy of that. So that's probably something that we should be doing.
Yep.
So, but all three of those documents, I think, need updated and rewritten. And this would be a good time to add that. That's one of my next big tackles is that paperwork. And we do keep all of that on file. We don't often pull it back out and show people. Sometimes I would like to. But yeah, I mean, just understanding the rules and regulations, it'd be nice to have them actually sign that, but I don't know how many people would read it. It's quite lengthy, like 23, 24 pages.
Well, we just do the checkbox like you do whenever I accept the rules when I want to make an electronic payment. Even though it goes to 10 or 12 pages, most people don't read them. They just check the box and then.
But if if it's available at each step, and also having them modernized. I mean, there's a lot of things in the rules, regulations that need updated, simplified, because you're not gonna find all these little pieces? You know, somebody will come in and say, hey, I read this paragraph.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, but you gotta look at 4 different places to understand it.
exactly, yeah.
And again,
It needs some updating, it definitely,
we'll update them
Yeah.
and then we'll put them online.
yeah,
That way they're accessible for anybody to see them at any point in time. You can just refer back to it. You can sign the service agreement, make sure that they get a copy, because that only makes sense in my mind.
yeah,
I sign this thing and never see it again. What good is it?
right,
I mean, it's good for us, but not so good for them.
right,
And then we put the service agreement, the general service agreement online so anybody can access. And then if they're like, well, I didn't know. Well,
which
That's
the
it.
rules and regulations, and those are all available online now. A little difficult to find maybe, but they're all on
yeah,
there.
I-
They're all on there, and most
While
of the
that
people,
is true, similarly to a service agreement, it's like, you know, you're under the gun with 30 seconds to click a box and it's 52 pages, so.
Yeah.
Is it available? Yes. Is it though?
Yeah.
You know.
it's not signed online.
Yeah.
Then the other thing, I think we kind of touched on it, and I think everybody maybe had some time to think about it, I hope, but we currently do not charge non-payment fees to sewer-only accounts. Is that fair? Should we be charging a non-payment fee to every account? Stormwater even, is that, like, how should we be operating as that goes? Because currently we only charge water because they're the only ones that we can turn off. I don't know
Aaron?
that that justifies,
Does the city spend money on the wastewater treatment plant? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, yes.
okay. And then the other question was, should it stack, right? And I think everybody agreed last time, but I wanted to get a final, if that's how you'd like it to start working, I'll start doing it that way. But we've had some people in the past that decide not to stack the fee. Like once we decide they're not paying it, we stop doing it. I don't think that that's right. I think it should be applied evenly for everyone. So I would like to continue doing that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody agreed with me on that. I think last time we got some agreement.
Yep.
So then the only other thing we'd need to decide is, do we want to start applying that to wastewater? Because just so you know, like we have some Clinton Township customers that do not pay their bill all year, and it goes to their lien. This would mean that every month there'd be an additional $40 on every payment that they don't make. It's going to stack up,
I think that we should do them the courtesy of alerting them.
letting them know that the change is coming.
Yeah. And then after that, pile it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's because that's operating money that we're not getting for the
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant. So,
It's gonna need some.
This ain't a soup kitchen.
yeah. Okay. So you're okay with me moving forward with all
Yes.
of those changes? Okay, thank you.
Define what all of those changes are.
I should define those. So we'll start applying the we'll notify first, and then start applying the $40 non-payment fee to sewer-only customers as well as water customers. I guess stormwater, I don't know that there's a big issue with stormwater. Are we legally allowed to do that?
Stormwater has a lot of code.
Right, so stormwater, you're not legally allowed to shut off water or non-payment of stormwater.
Right.
I think we've been applying the late fees, but we do not have a shut off. So the stormwater has a separate set of rules and regulations. There's not a shut off list. There's not a $40 shut off list fee in stormwater. So
Right.
you can apply the late fees and those can stack, but you can't apply a shut off fee and you cannot shut their water off.
Right.
So
Okay. So we'll stay away from
stay with what
stormwater.
we're doing. We'll
Okay.
stick with that because again, it does have a separate set of rules and regulations.
Okay.
So
Understandable.
if we update the text of your 10% late fee, we would also want to change that in the other, but you can't do the $40 fee.
Okay. Understandable.
Yep.
And then the stacking. So if people continue to not pay, the non-payment fee will continue to be added each month.
So let's
those-
run a scenario. So a person gets their water shut off and it doesn't get turned back on. Do you give them the $40 fee the second time? Because they've already been shut off and you
So
haven't turned it back on.
we apply a minimum charge regardless of whether they're service or not. So
Because it's not a shut-off fee, it's a non-payment fee.
Okay, so they get turned off, don't pay it. They would get a non-payment fee the next time, even if the service is still off.
right, because they're still being billed for 4 units of water. So
Yep. Okay.
it's
For the
not,
scenario
it's
where,
not popular. I'll tell you that. It's not
right,
popular.
a scenario where, say, a house is transferred and the new buyer doesn't move in, you would still have a non-payment fee that would stack. Okay.
Yeah, I think the only reason, I mean, when I think about that, is it fair that somebody that stays behind pays it every month, where somebody that doesn't pay at all doesn't have to pay it every month? It kind of, it doesn't seem fair in that manner to me. I think that if we're doing that to somebody that's just staying behind, it should still happen to people that never even try to pay.
Well, the thing we should say to the public who's listening is that, if there's a certain scenario or a special condition, that's what this commission's for. Those people who would disagree with the fees would come and testify and ask for, a special situation. So,
Right.
I believe that we've actually granted the building department the certain ability to waive fees below a certain level.
$500.
$500. Yeah.
So that, a few of those, that they could handle themselves, but beyond that, you're exactly correct.
Yeah, if someone has, racked up an enormous fee for some unknown reason, they could come and talk to us about it. So it's, these are putting forward rules and regulations, but if someone has a special case, there is a process to discuss that, and if they disagree with our opinion, they can proceed to another step with the common pleas court. So there is a ladder of issue resolution that is built into the process, just for the public who may be out watching this video.
Right.
So it is a non-payment fee, but there are means to shut off the service, that way it wouldn't accumulate. So if you were, I don't know, for whatever reason, out of the country for a year and a half, and you would like to shut off your service,
Yes, so there's a waiver of minimum charge that you apply for. So your account has to be paid in full,
okay?
and then you can apply for a waiver of minimum charge. We charge $75. That covers us dropping the meter and holding that meter and then putting it back in. So that $75 fee is the charge for that manual process that we have to do.
Reconnection charge off waiver. Yeah, it's on this fee schedule.
Yep,
And that is good for until you turn it back on.
that's correct. Now, that doesn't apply to sewer-only accounts because we can't pull the meter for a sewer-only account. It only applies to water.
Yep.
So if you're a sewer-only account, don't leave the country.
Well,
Well, and the other thing is, if you're in Clinton Township, there's no process to turn off the membership fee, what I call the membership fee. The district fee has to be paid whether you're using
Yeah.
service or not.
and we can't waive that.
And we don't have any authority over that. So if you have an improved lot, you gotta pay that fee. And wastewater plant's gonna be there, whether,
Yeah.
Right.
How often do you get that reconnection charge of waiver minimum or
Waiver of minimum charge.
Yeah.
We have people that travel over the summer or over the winter to go south. A lot of those
snowbirds.
people have caught on and religiously come in and get that taken care of.
So that's not an uncommon thing.
No.
All right.
And we tell everyone who calls in, we explain that. Like we could probably advertise it more, right, as an option, but I think in most cases it's an investor buys a property in Mount Vernon, doesn't realize that is available, but they never contact us to find out. And that person, it's difficult to help out. So that's when we had a gentleman come in and ask for that before, if he comes in and asks for forgiveness because he bought the property as an investment and then didn't do anything with it for a long time, maybe you offer him the $75 fee and make the adjustment. He pays the $75. That makes it fair because that's, if he would have known and he would have done it that way, that would be
Sure.
achievable. So that's how I would try to handle those things. I think it makes it fair.
and
But
last year, as part of the mayor's speaking tour, we sent him to the Board of Realtors with Emily, and they talked about, they had a sort of an educational series for the Board of Realtors. They went to at least a couple meetings and talked about utility services and different aspects of the city and how to welcome. We're getting a lot of new people, how to have the realtors make sure they're explaining stuff correctly.
we do have a couple of realtors that do send people into us.
Yep.
So there are a few that do it, but I think there's many that don't as well. So it would be helpful for them to say, hey, by the way, once you purchase this house, there's this thing called water bill that you have to take care of. So it would be helpful. Yeah. But everybody thinks that if they don't solicit for services, that there's no bill being applied because that's how many other utilities work. But with water, we don't do that.
But they have to have the water on to do their inspections.
Yes.
So it's maybe educating having all the people that would be interacting with a new customer, talking to the companies that do home inspections, talking to the realtors, maybe having some pamphlets for the closing agents.
Yeah, we've had calls where the inspector's at the house needs the water turned on, and we're like, oh, there's an $1,800 water bill that needs to be taken care of before we can do that, because the house has been empty for, a year. So yeah, it happens. We get
Yep.
those calls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my next one, I guess, that's kind of, if you guys don't have any, do you have any more for that? I know we kind of bleed into changes and current process, and I just trying to define current process. So then to break them up a bit, I wanted to mention that we did get the contract signed for InfoSend to start sending bills through them. And that will give us a perforated bill, which is a common complaint. I think people will be very happy about that.
Sure.
We'll have the option to do by color if we want to. I was explaining to Aaron the other day that a lot of people don't like color because they think it costs too much. The price of color printing has come way down, especially when you're doing mass production. So we could apply some color, and I know our city colors are kind of black and white, so that kind of works out well for our bill, luckily.
Yep.
But I thought
Problem
that potentially, I think for like less than a half a penny, we can add some red lettering in there. So that would give us some options when we're trying to reach out to customers. We can have a red note section that we can apply, and we can actually turn that on and off as we need, so we're not charged for it all the time. But those are big changes for us. We can also restructure the bill, which we plan on doing, to make it a little less compacted into small space with a lot of text.
Right.
And they'll be printing the backers for us still. They'll also get a return envelope, which I think might be the happiest we make everybody, because that's the most common complaint, is that we don't send a return remittance envelope. So now that will also be in there once we get that project up and rolling. So it looks like potentially 8 weeks. I haven't had the kickoff call yet. It's supposed to be today or tomorrow. And we'll get the schedule and kind of have an idea when it's going to go. So hopefully before too long, I'll be able to bring some bills over and show you guys kind of the direction that we're going, and you guys can check out the format. And
We will cease using Comic Sans, correct?
yes, that's already happened.
That is-
Yeah,
Okay.
that's already gone.
Make sure.
Yep.
All right.
So that's the update for InfoSend. Do you guys have any questions with that? Okay, that's one of my favorite projects. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time coming for that one. So then to kind of get back into shut-off fees again, this is changes. Brian had asked for some suggestions. We've already kind of discussed a lot of them. So I have like kind of 5 options here that we'd come up with that we've talked about a couple of times. First one being increasing the fee. I don't know that we're ready to do that yet. Are you guys
No, seems.
ready to try some of the other ways first?
Yep.
Okay. Then changing the shut-off process. This was one that's popular. Is we do 2 days. We do shut-offs in the morning, turn-ons after lunch. We do that 2 separate days. We really have a need to probably bring that into 3 days sometimes. But I think that doing all shut-offs day 1, all turn-ons day 2, same schedule for us, so to speak, but may give us a little boost on reducing that number. Then there's the adding to the deposit option, which again, I would like to do a little more research to make sure that our software can handle that, because if it can't, that would be very difficult for us to keep track of. Requiring the account balance to be paid in full before service is restored. That's another one I think that other cities have had good luck with and reducing their list. And then we talked about implementing forgiveness process. Tanner, I think you had mentioned that. Is that something that we want to move forward with? Do you want to do that? Like right now, we do a once in a lifetime late fee forgiveness. So if you start your water a lot of people use it first month. So they start a water process. For some reason, they don't get the first bill paid in time because they're not used to the schedule and how it works. Then typically we'll remove that 10% for them. We do that one time. It gets noted on their account, and that's the only one that's just automatically given to everyone. So that process, if we were to do that for the non-payment fee, would be a little difficult to keep track of, because it's basically just a note on the account that we have to go look at before we do it. So if that's something you want to do, is that something you're thinking once per year, once a lifetime? Like, if we want to go that route, I would want to get your ideas on how often or how that would work.
Well, let's go back here. Changing the shut-off process, my opinion, I think you do at least a full 24 hours. Like, I would try to avoid 48 if at all possible.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? Anyone?
I think you just need a really heavy public notification so
Yep.
that maybe specific mailing to the last 4 sets of.
Yeah. And I think that we could send out a public notice to the newspaper, and we could
Yeah.
have a conversation with Cheryl and make sure that that gets out there if that's and we could do a litany of all of these, process changes.
Well, yeah, I don't recommend doing all 5, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
seems a little harsh.
Yeah.
And I guess the way that I look at that is I don't really want to leave people without water. That's not my intention, right? Our intention is to try to reduce that shut-off list and save some manpower, right? I think in lieu of adding more money and hitting them in the pocket,
Right.
maybe just doing the water is actually a less harsh, in my opinion.
And I think if we lead with the percentages, that 1.2% of the customers actually fall in this.
Right.
And really, the way that we've already talked about it and framed it is that this is actually a benefit because we are not pushing people down in this, like I referred to it as a doom loop.
Yeah.
You get 300, you're close to $300. If we push them back up, you're at that, 172 with these rough figures.
Right.
So that's a better system. We've got the pour it forward that we're gonna push harder. We've got these community resources that people can jump in on. So we don't have to be afraid of doing what the standard practice is, essentially,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I don't, while we're not increasing the non-payment fee, I don't think we have to be afraid of doing all 5. I think it's better to not trickle these things in. Water joke. We don't have to trickle these things into the community because then it constantly looks like we're just beating people over the
More
head.
and
You
more.
do,
Yeah.
one fell swoop and get it all out there. Adding a deposit. Well, first off, anybody else have any comment on point 2? Thoughts? I think we're all.
Yeah, I'm okay with
in
point 2
agreement.
as long
Yeah.
as we have a specific campaign to notify people that, hey,
Yeah.
this is coming.
Right. Adding a deposit, I think that's a good thing moving forward. We're about to add a lot of new customers. So, this is assuming that the system can handle it.
Yeah, I
You
will.
know.
I'll get with them. I'll try to get with them today
Right.
and at least get the question out there. Sometimes it takes a day or 2 to get back
Sure.
to me.
I mean, we are in no, great urban rush to do this. Like, we've been operating like,
Right.
not like this for a long time, so we're good. But, if we can add a deposit on new customers, and then if people fall back into that, cyclical issue, then we can require a deposit on them. I don't think we need to go, which I don't think you're proposing, but we don't need to go around to all the regular paying
Yeah,
customers that
now you need to
be
pay a
like,
deposit.
now you need a deposit. That's weird.
Because I think it's basically, I like the rule, like 12, after 12 months, if you start a new account, 12 months in, you've paid in full, we release that and
Right.
credit your account towards your bill. If I can track that, if I
Yeah,
can't track that, it would
or
be very
not,
difficult.
or you can just leave it there, and after if you move or whatever, and then you get just like you do with a rental or.
Right,
whatnot.
it's
So,
just more difficult for us to pay out
Yes.
than it is to credit. So that
Sure.
was the only reason why I would want to word it as it would go towards a credit on your account rather than you.
Yeah,
get paid
because
back.
we get into an unclaimed funds situation.
Yeah.
Say somebody leaves, we have their deposit, it's technically their money.
Right.
It's really difficult. Then you've got a whole process to deal with unclaimed funds.
My point is whatever works best for your system.
Right, they can-
If you can, again, using the word trickle, if you can trickle that back into their bill as a credit, and that works best, you do that. If not, leave it in a little pot, and we'll figure that other situation out. So, comments, questions? All right. 4, requiring the account balance be paid in full before service is restored. I think if that's what everybody else is doing, and we're just doing the weird little, month at a time, but you're still always behind,
Yeah.
that's why we end up in a constant, people doing this 10 months because they're just paying their bill,
Right.
essentially. And they're gonna avoid the big, monster behind door number 2,
Right.
which is that, $150 waiting for them. So I think that that's fine.
Yeah, and I think will work better with the different agencies providing aid, so that I think they'll actually get more help
Yeah.
to the customers from United Way and their other partner organizations.
Salvation Army does this, United Way, I think Interchurch does it. I mean,
Yep.
we've got,
St. Vincent also
St.
does. Yeah. So
and then before we launch this, and I think we could even aim for summer to have this, tight, updated. If we need to do ordinances through council, we can fix
Well,
this
yeah,
up.
some of the stuff will need updates on the parts of 920, the 9 for the various things, and some of it doesn't, so.
So we can, we don't have to rush, but we can have a whole package ready for people. By then, I'm pretty hopeful that the website will be up and ready, so we can have a page for that
specifically for
to
it.
point people to.
Okay.
And then, we can have a nice, easily, distribute, something that we can distribute to folks that they can read. But, yeah, I think that that's the way to move forward. And then implementing a forgiveness process. So this is something I want to discuss too. If you want to do it, this is where I kick it back to you guys for, review, because doing it, having the ability to forgive, right at the beginning when people are getting used to their new customer and they're, figuring out how this works, it's a good idea. Also, if you, go from paying, with a check each month, or, walking in and paying with cash, and then you move over to that automatically withdrawn, and there's something screwy with a bank or something like that, and I don't like the once in a lifetime, but this is where I give the department discretion to, somebody calls in and it's like, I didn't even know that it wasn't pulling, or, something,
Well,
they thought it was an 8 and it was a 6, or.
Well, typically, if there's an issue like that, we would take care of that anyway,
Okay.
right?
But if you're setting a rule where we only give you forgiveness once in a lifetime, do you forgive that? What do you mean by forgiveness? Implementing a forgiveness process.
If so, forgiveness would be everything was done correctly and they just got behind, and one time we give you an opportunity, but hey, it was a warning, basically, right?
Right.
If there's a clerical issue where their automatic payment didn't take, or it didn't process, it was our
So
fault.
that's outside of it.
Yeah, that would be a separate issue altogether,
Okay.
right? If the intent was that they paid their bill and we just didn't get it taken out,
All right.
or there was a systematic issue, like in my opinion, there's no negligence there, right?
Right.
They were attempting to do it, right? So-
I would be in favor of a once per year, once per 2 year, more than,
Yeah.
because if somebody's paying with a credit card and their card gets stolen and they have to change the credit card and gets stuck in the process, where the moment you tell the credit card company to lock everything down and then they don't give you a new card for a week, and then your payment comes off your card and it's locked. I feel like there's enough issues with banking, and we've had city council members say, oh, I went to Florida and I transferred my mail or did this or that and missed it. And so there was a lot of things where I think not every month, but maybe once per year, once per 2 years, I would say it's more than the lifetime. The account seems pretty harsh.
Right. But once per year, according to the statistics that I pulled, would reduce 50% of our turnoffs.
Yeah. Think
So,
about
but once per year might be very difficult for us to track. Once in a lifetime is easier, right? And it's just because we're limited on our system.
Right.
Once per year we have to go back through the notes, right? And if we have a lot of notes on an account, it can be missed, right? So we're not. I don't like to leave loose ends, and that seems like something that kind of leaves loose ends. I don't have an absolute yes, they've had it for this year, and it doesn't I have a section where I can put it, but I'd literally have to put year 1, year 2, year 3 in order to keep it data driven, so to speak.
Or just the day you do it.
Right. But you have to go back and find it then.
Oh.
So when the second time around comes, you have to go.
They don't have and this is me just not knowing the system, but like if you pull up an account with notes section, you can't say forgiven 24, and then if you pull it back up that year, be like, you already received your 24 forgiveness.
Right.
Whether
We don't
that's
have.
Jan 1 or December 31st.
I'll have to look and see. I don't know that they're we have notes and they're just stacked in there, right? It has
Right.
the date and who put it in. I don't know if we can
Yeah.
search by the date, like just look back a year and we'll see. I'll look at that and see. That might be an
Yeah.
option, but right now their note system in this software, the software is very old.
Yeah.
It's very old, and it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles that newer software does have. Granted, I haven't looked at a lot of billing. I've looked at a lot of billing ones, but I've never gotten in that deep to notes, right? But
Well, maybe you explore
Yep.
what that would look like before we make any.
I would like to do
definitive
that. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
Because I'm kind of with Brian on that, when it seems extreme to just say once in a lifetime when there are a lot of issues that can crop up. And we've got a very, diverse age range in the community, so.
Right.
Some
They do
folks are-
also, it's 2.5 months to rectify before the fee is applied too. So they do have a good chunk of time before that actually gets applied. So that's the only other consideration that I try to make.
I imagine that the primary issue are a lot of clerical things. Because at the end of the day, you gotta pay your bill.
Yeah. Like I said, that 50% was one time only. So that person, it hit, they learned, no problems, right?
Yep.
So it would take care of those.
Yeah, that would be, so thinking about, you got the two halves of this seems like you've got things that would help on both halves.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's a lot of, look at here, and there's a lot of work that needs done besides just turning water off and turning it back on.
Right. Well, and then keep in mind there'll be an increased revenue from adding wastewater to that too. So that helps cover processes as well.
Did we, again, there are holidays and whatnot between the last meeting, but do we know any more about the lien process? I know we talked about that last time, so.
I actually need to get with Terry and see, they were kind of arguing whether we would be able to collect for Clinton Township.
Okay.
And they were kind of kicking some of those back at us, but Terry said we've done it before and we have the documentation, it's in our ordinance and we have the water contract. So I think he was able to get that settled. I need
Okay.
to follow up with him and see if it's done or if it's still kind of up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's worth pursuing, then,
Yeah, he had every intention that it wasn't going to be an issue. It was just a matter of convincing them of that.
okay.
So,
We feel that Terry's pretty convincing most of the time.
yeah. Well, just the fact that the precedence, right? We've done it. It's been happening for a
Well,
long
we
time.
we have all the documents, we have the contracts,
And we're a contracted collector for Clinton Township, so
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue. I think it's just a matter of convincing them.
yeah.
I think that's all that I have.
All right.
Sorry to be winded again, but we got it
very important.
These are good.
under an hour for this time.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, let's see. So that is all for new business. We do have some communications. Well, it looks like we have adjustments and corrections from December 23 that was in here before the other stuff. Anybody want to comment on the adjustments and corrections?
Did you vote on it?
Do we need to vote on it? Is that how that works?
Yeah, approval.
Okay, just.
I would make a motion to approve the December adjustment journal.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. The clerk may call the roll. Well,
Salyers,
yeah. Yes.
Mr. Ball,
Yes.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Yes?
Ms. Dusenberg,
Yes.
All right, it is approved. Moving on to the communications. We have a communication from www attachment.
So that shows up at the bottom when you have
Okay.
attachments. So it's always there as long as there's attachments, unfortunately.
So it's the
Okay.
whole packet.
Oh, the
It's
whole thing.
everything. that's
All
on
right.
Brad's part.
That's just how
So
it's
no
set.
communications then. All right. Sounds good. All right, well, that looks like that concludes all the business, and I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stay here.
I love it. Nice work. Stay here. Stay as long as you want.
Yeah. You don't have to go home, but you can stay here.
Can't stay there. That's right. we recognize our utility commission